Okay, I'm going to do something strange here. I'm going to sort of mix up programming and databases in a sort of pseudo-codey way. When they are looking at a table, and I've just pointed out that a row is called a record. Now that may be held in a program, so you can imagine that we've got the data out of the database and into our program, and we store it into a record. Now records tend to be arrays, so records tend to be arrays, and we haven't really dealt much with the word arrays, but we have dealt with the word lists. A list in Python can be anything, so I can have a number and I can have a string, which is a number. It's quite happy to do that. But arrays can't be. Arrays are all of the same data type. Okay, so I would have to have a string 0 and a string 1. And we'll come to playing around with this a little bit later. But the way that this record would be sort of denoted in Python or any particular language, it would be given a name, so it might be called person data. Okay, that is just like giving the list a name, which we're quite familiar with, and then in square brackets it would consist of all of these items but as strings. So the first record here would be Dotty, and then the gender would be F, and then the weight would be 3.2 as a string, and then number of days would be -6. I'm keeping with the minus number that we used before, and finally false. And that is that record sort of represented in a program, and it's no specific program. It's not Python, it's not Basic or anything else. The only thing I need to tell you is that arrays must be of the same type, and although we know these are numbers and we set them up as numbers probably when we set the database up, I'm going to come to that a bit later on in programming when we look at programming something called casting. Right, so I want to explain what this is and how to address it. You have seen this numerous times, so you should be okay with it. Dotty, well, before we go there, you have to be careful when you're reading the question in the exam if they're talking about records like this and giving you an array. They will tell you that the array begins either at 0 or begins at 1. If they don't tell you what it begins at, assume that it begins at 0. 0 indexed array. They should tell you that. If they don't, assume 0. So we can sort of get to all of these items. So if I want Dotty, that would be person data 0. Okay, so Dotty is at person data 0, and I'm going to put that, this is not programming, I'm just going to do an arrow to let you know that that is Dotty. And at person data 1, 0, 1, that is F, and person data 2, you've got the idea here, but it is important, is 3.2, and at person data 3, it is -6, and at person data 4, that is false, the value false. So that's the record. When you sort of look online or try and check out records for revision, you might see things called structures or records in different languages. for the time being you can ignore that. It's not really going to appear in anything because it won't be language specific in the exam. This is pretty much available in every language. In Python it's a list, in Basic it's an array, Pascal it's an array, C it's an array, and so on. And the only thing is that arrays always have to have the same data type. Lists can be of different data types, and we're going to ignore lists when we're in the exam. They just don't exist. That's Python specific. So please be aware of the indexing and what the value of each one is. They might ask you, for example, to tell me what is the, or how would you address the 3.2, and that would be a case of doing person data 2 is 3.2. So that is a record. Okay, we call it an array, which is a record. That is that record in that database table, and that is the way we pull out the information from each one. And we'll have a look a little bit more of that when we come to do a bit of pseudocode on this information here.